Don't bother to adjust the quality of the video. It is indeed out of focus. It's out of focus because I set the camera up wrong. I set the camera up wrong because I was extremely nervous. And here's why. The horse in the video is named Nevi, and he's just a little older than 2 years old. Just a few weeks ago, Nevi was completely untrained. He never had a saddle, a bridle, or any equipment on him. And now, I'm about to step over him. This is the first time anyone's ever attempted to ride Nevi. That's my brother Wendell holding the horse. What happens next is amazing. Let me tell you all about my journey to this point in time.
Well, I grew up on the farm, worked my life away, digging potatoes and baling the hay. I never did care for working the ground. I packed up my stuff and I left town. Well, I left town, baby. I left town, baby. I went off to be my own man. Well, I took up here with these scruffy-looking fellas and started a psychobilly band.
It was only a few short months ago that this is how I made my living, playing full time with great musicians like these two guys. Now that's Kenny Harrison on the bass. Kenny's played with everyone from Bob Dylan to Stories to Billy Idol. I mean, he was even Rolling Stone's Bass Player of the Year one year. On drums is David Osikinen. You probably know him from the supergroup The Hooters, and he also plays with many other bands like David Osikinen's In the Pocket and Smash Palace. This project is called QDK. Things were really going great. We were recording and had a lot of great gigs. I was also playing with other bands like the fantastic Dr. Harmonica and Rocket 88. That's a band that goes way back in the whole Delaware music scene. In fact, they just enshrined us into the Delaware Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've been endorsed by Gretsch Guitars, and everything was looking good for me. I was happy, and then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and everything came to a complete standstill. It was the spring of 2020 and I was quarantined. I had no one to talk to and no human contact other than who I could call on my phone or reach through the internet. Sitting outside one day, I started making friends with a squirrel. I soon discovered that the squirrel was a mother squirrel, and her and I formed a bond. Every day she would come to my door and I would feed her. Our visits became the highlight of my day, and I looked forward to them. One day, while sitting out there with the squirrel, I noticed she got nervous and then she ran away. I looked up and there was my neighbor. He told me that I wasn't allowed to feed the squirrel because it was against the rules of the neighborhood, and that he was going to report me to the property management company. So, not wanting any trouble, I decided I had to stop feeding the squirrel, and it broke my heart. Shortly after this, I received a phone call from my big brother, Wendell Jones. He said, "Look, if you're not doing anything, why don't you come on out to the barn? I have a couple of rescue horses and a few other horses I could use some help with." Wendell and his wife Kelly own a boarding and training stable on the other side of town. Together they own many horses and they enjoy working with them and taking care of them. In her spare time, Kelly often can arrange rescue of animals like cats and dogs, horses and ponies by working with various agencies across the country to help arrange for their rescue. Sometimes the animals end up right there on Wendell and Kelly's farm. But what happens to these horses that they need to be rescued? Well, oftentimes it starts with people wanting to have a pet, having good intentions and not realizing what they've signed on for. I'll have my brother tell you a little more about it.
He was a baby, skin and bones.
So what about these people, some of these people with the ponies and the wild horses, they adopt them thinking they're going to be pets, and then
they think they're going to be pets, and they really aren't equipped to handle it, and they're not knowledgeable enough, and they're too cheap to reach out to somebody and, have them help them, so they go right back into the sale. The average guy isn't going to buy a horse that's not broke or you can't ride.
What are you going to, what's going on with Bodie, and what are you going to do with these guys? What's your long-term goal? Just to keep them going and cross that bridge later? Or?
No, they're rescued. They stay here. They're not necessarily going anywhere. You can't really sell horses to people today because it's like selling German Shepherds or something. People don't understand what it is anymore, and right to the pound. I think with German Shepherds specifically, I think it's like 70% or 75% go to the pound. People can't handle it anymore. They don't want to handle it. They don't want to learn. The same with the horses.
After some of the restrictions of the lockdown were lifted, I decided to take Wendell up on his offer, and I headed out to the barn to see what was what and who was there and what horses were there and if there was any way I could be of any help. Little did I know that the events that were about to take place would lead me back to full circle where I started from. But before I get into all that, let me have Wendell introduce to you some of those horses that I met on that day.
This is Coda, and I believe in Lakota. Coda is dog because my wife feels he acts like a dog with his face, and he's always grabbing stuff and throwing it around and licking and biting. But he was at a farm where the folks decided to breed horses, and the man passed away, and they were all destined for slaughter to the sale. And we happened to stumble into it, and I got him.
How do you find these horses, Wendell?
My wife finds them on the internet mostly. The internet has both helped and ruined the horse business. But on the helping side, people post them for sale or they want to get rid of them. I think we paid $50 for him, if you want to know the truth. I think it was like $50. I got him as a little baby, and he's great to ride. He's a lot of fun to ride.
Who rides them?
I do.
Yeah?
I ride him. One of the gals will ride him. I've used him for a few lessons. But he's a bit of an acquired taste because he's supposed to be paint thoroughbred, but I think he's a Mustang.
Gotcha.
I don't see any thoroughbred in him. But he's got classic Mustang feet and ankles, which is okay. It's all right. He does his job. He was 2 steps from death's door. Literally 2 steps. He was going up the ramp into the slaughter truck. He had already been bought by the meat packer, and Penny rescued him, bought him, pulled him right off the truck. Literally, that's what that means. They pulled him off the truck. And I went down to look at him, and he was like an orphan, and they didn't know what he was. But I recognized that he was a standardbred, and brought him back. He was probably somebody's broodmare, and they didn't pay the bill on the broodmare, so they repossessed the mare, kept her, and got rid of the foal. Because they probably couldn't get papers on the foal because they didn't have ownership. Because in the horse business, you can still seize the horse for the bill, just like 150 years ago. You could take the horse for the bill, but it doesn't do you any good nowadays, because you're not going to get what the bill really is. So they go into the sale, and if they drop below a certain price, right to slaughter. I think it's right, $500-600 is the slaughter value. And if no one's bidding, there they go. The average guy isn't going to buy a horse that's not broke or you can't ride. Bodie was raised by a lady, I believe, and they had too many horses, and somebody jumped the fence and the stud bred the mare, and they got voted. But then the lady couldn't feed them, so they were starving, and we got them for
When
nothing.
Bodie came here, he was skin and bones.
He was skin and bones. A baby. He was a baby, skin and bones.
This is Shaw, and lady bred him up in Harrisburg somewhere, and he got too big for her, so we bought him. I don't think I paid a bunch of money for him, and he got bigger and bigger and bigger, and here he is. But he's a good boy. I ride him, and he's playful, but he won't hurt you. You know, he won't hurt you. At least he won't mean to hurt you because he's so big. He's a good fellow.
What's his breeding?
I think he's part draft and part quarter horse. Part draft, part quarter horse. He has a voracious appetite. But he's like a big baby Dewey. He's a big baby Dewey.
How long have you had him?
Oh, we've had him, I think 2 or 3 years. It's supposed to be a birthday present for my wife, but he outgrew her, so, you know, he's a giant. He's a little bigger than he looks right here when you get him out of the stall. He's a little bit bigger. Other than that, he's a good fellow. Nice disposition.
Of course, there's many other horses at the stable. Some are rescues and some are owned by other people, but these are going to be the main 4 characters in the first part of the series. Each one of these horses is a different individual, and each one of them is in a different stage of their training. Out of the 4, Coda and Shaw had the most experience, and my brother had been working with them for quite some time when I showed up. On the other hand, Bodie and Nevi were pretty much beginners. Bodie had some work, but Nevi was starting from square one. So I helped my brother with all these horses, but I started to develop a special bond with one of them. However, that's a story for the next episode of The Stable Saints.